Friends, I am Dr. Avinash Anand Raut and I am going to teach you quantitative ecology, biomass, numbers and identification of microorganisms. I am an assistant professor in microbiology and I teach MSc as well as BSc students related to microbial ecology. In that context, I have selected this topic related to quantitative ecology. Now, in this first slide, if you can see, the numbers, biomass and metabolic activity are the fundamental biotic parameters of microbial ecosystems. Means what? Whenever in an ecosystem, if you want to carry out any research, you should know the number of microorganisms which are the inhabitants of that ecosystem. You should know the biomass as well as you should know the metabolic activities or the which substrate is being converted into the product by the microorganisms. That in detail you should know. Then you should examine the microorganisms in the natural ecosystems. You should collect representative subsamples. You cannot gather the whole samples and bring it in your laboratory. The whole water sample which is present in your lake, you cannot bring it in your laboratory. You should collect representative samples which will give you correct number of microorganisms, and the microorganisms which are present in that ecosystem only should come with you in the form of sample. That is very important point when you are collecting the sample. In that context, there are three phases of quantification of microorganisms. First is the sample collection, then sample processing, and third is the actual measurement of microorganisms. Okay. Now, the second slide, the sample procedure must ensure that the number or activities of microorganisms are not altered either positively or negatively. Means what? The number of activities of microorganisms means what? If you bring the sample into your laboratory, it should give correct results. The same results you should get in your laboratory. It is not the thing that in the natural ecosystem it gives different results and in the laboratory it should give different results. It should give the same type of results in your laboratory also as well as in the natural ecosystem. It should not hamper it positively or negatively. Third, samples are representative and not contaminated with foreign microorganisms. That point is very important, because whenever you bring a sample in your laboratory, it should not be contaminated with your hands, the microorganisms which are present in your hands. For that you should wear sterile gloves, you should use a sterile shovel while collecting the soil sample, you should use a sterile bottle when you are collecting the water sample, and throughout the journey from that particular sample area to your laboratory, the sample should not get contaminated with undesired microorganisms or the outside microorganisms. That is the point of interest. Then microorganisms come only from ecosystem being examined. That is the same point, that they should come from the ecosystem which has to be examined. From that ecosystem only you should get the sample. Now, whenever you are collecting the soil samples, the microbiologists, what mistake do they commit? That they don't use aseptic techniques, but they rely only on the shovels and pail because of abundance of microorganisms in relative to contaminants from the air or non-sterile containers. At least when you are collecting the soil sample, you should sterilize the shovel with the help of 70% or more than 70% of ethanol or propanol, whichever solvent you have, and you should use a sterile soil cork borer when you are digging up the soil for collection. Then the sampling of microorganisms present in the soil in low number may require attractants or baits. Okay. It can also happen that you can get the samples of soil which have very less amount of microorganisms. It may be due to any type of chemical fertilizers which you have used, or some farmers have the habit to burn the soil as well as the leaves after harvesting the crops. Due to that reason also, you can see that the number of soil microorganisms completely drastically decreases. That is not the point of our interest. Then the soil samples, they are being collected by using buried slide technique. Buried slide technique, that is sampling, observation and enumeration of microorganisms in soils and the sediments. Then variations of buried slide technique. What is variation? Electron grid which reveals more microbial morphological details than light microscopy. Electron grid, you can use the electron grids which reveals more microbiological morphological details. Means electron microscope obviously is the quite good technique for revealing more microscopic details of the microorganism which are present in that soil sample. Then next technique is a flattered glass capillaries. Flattered glass capillaries, which can be used for enumerating the microorganisms or facilitating the growth of only the microorganisms of your interest in a closed environment, in situ we can call it as. Then the major achievements of the capillary techniques is that this capillary racetrack method, you must be knowing about the capillary racetrack method, which is used for enumeration or isolation and enumeration of magnetotactic bacteria from the sediment samples. Capillary racetrack method. You can use capillary technique for isolating these types of special type of microorganisms such as extremophiles from the environment. Observation, you can use the observation of microbial landscapes of slit deposits. Then description of new genera of non-culturable microorganisms with unusual morphology can be isolated or enumerated by this microbiological techniques, microscopic techniques. Then observation of life cycle stages in natural habitats. You can also observe the life cycle of that microorganisms in this natural habitat. That is called as in situ analysis of the microorganisms. Okay. Then next is sampling problems. What are the sampling problems? Remote collection required and non-indigenous microorganisms could contaminate the samples. Non-indigenous microorganisms means the organisms which are not of our interest, they also come in the samples. Then to minimize this step, you can use these three types of sampling bottles for various types of microorganisms. Okay. First is a Nansen and Van Dorn bottle, which is used for isolation of algae as well as protozoa. Then JZ sampler, which is used for the sampling of a bacteria. Then Niskin sterile bag water sampler. This is Niskin sterile bag water sampler. It enables the to take the samples from any depth of that reservoir. You can simply insert this bag in that reservoir which contains the tape, and you can go down up to your desired depth, and you can open the bottle. After opening the bottle, water from that depth only goes inside, and after that you can close the bottle and take the sample, or that pull the rope upwards, and you can get the desired depth sample, and you can use that sample for your further microbiological techniques. Then next is we have to sediment samples. These sediment samples are collected from marine as well as freshwater ecosystems. They are collected from marine as well as freshwater ecosystems. Then grab samplers are also used by various types of researchers which do not prevent, but they do not prevent contamination. Grab sampler, you have to grab the sample. Then corers are used frequently by benthic biologists and rarely by marine microbiologists. Then core samples are taken up by some of the researchers, where caution is taken to prevent compression. Coring device can also be used. Then divers and submersibles, they can also be used, which are used for remote sampling areas. Then air samplers. How to collect the air sample? Sample processing is coupled with sample collection. Okay. So microbial number in air are quite low. Why? Because air is not a good medium of substrate, because very negligible substrates are present in the air, which facilitates the growth of microorganisms. So it is impractical to collect large volume of air. Only some air samplers are available in the research institutes which are being designed for collection of the samples, and you can collect the samples by using the sterile air sampler, where the media containing the suitable agar nutrient medium is embedded in that air sampler, and air is sucked inside with the help of suction pump for a particular amount of time only, and after that, that suction or that pore is closed after exposure to some limit of time, and after that the air which contains some dust particles along with some microorganisms settle at that nutrient agar medium or agar nutrient medium containing suitable agar nutrient medium which facilitates the growth of microorganisms, and we have to incubate that plate at a particular for 24 to 48 hours, or in the case of if you want to explore some fungi, you can keep the plate for incubation for 4 to 5 days, so that you can get growth. Then passive sampling, then membrane filters are used, Anderson air samplers are used for collection of the samples. Then biological samples. Biological samples, the sap or blood is collected dissecting to recover a particular tissue, example liver, they can be as well as the excreted products, fecal matter and surface tissues, they can be recovered by using sophisticated methods. Then plant surface, this collected by washing, oral cavity by scraping and washing tooths the surface. Then human skin surface is collected, sample from human skin surface is collected by swabbing. The swabs are taken for collecting the samples from the corona suspected patient. You can see in the in televisions how the paramedical staff is collecting the sample very carefully from the throat, and it is directly kept in a sterile saline containing tube, and it is being transported to the laboratory, and then it is subjected for RT-PCR afterwards. Okay. So then examination of association between microbial populations, examination of anatomical relationship enumeration is done by for the biological samples. Then examination of association between animals or plants and microbiota is done for some samples also. Then detection. Next is the detection of microbial population. How to detect the micro? You have now sampled the soil sample, the water sample, the biological sample, or the water sample or air sample. Then you have to bring it in your laboratory. Okay, and you have to, before processing, you have to keep it. If you are going to take more time for processing, then you should keep the sample for 24 to 48 hours. If time is to be taken, then you should keep it at refrigeration temperatures. Okay. Now the phenotypic detection, that is lipid profile analysis. Now lipid profile analysis, now you can see in the slide that this lipid profile means fatty acid methyl esters are used nowadays for identification of the microorganism. Phenotypic detection, nowadays only 16S rRNA sequencing is not the only method for detecting the novel microorganisms. You should also use lipid profile analysis, or fatty acid methyl esters are also determined. Every bacteria has its unique lipid profile in it according to their species as well as genus, and that profile is detected and it is compared with the database which is present in the genetic library or in the database which is present in the lipid profile library for exploring new type of microorganisms from the environment. Okay. Now in this slide you can see palmitic acid is there, sapic acid is there, stearic acid is there. Okay. Then petroselenic acid is there, cis-8 octadecanoic acid is there, oleic acids are there. These are the fatty acids which are present in the microorganism or various types of samples, hairs, then nails, then sebums, as well as that is the standard. Last is the standard to which it is to be compared. Likewise, you can also compare the lipid profile analysis for the bacteria as well as bacteria also. Okay. Then is a molecular detection, amplification of DNA. Okay, this is the polymerase chain reaction in which the double stranded DNA is first denatured for 1 minute for 94 degrees Celsius. After heating the DNA sample, what will happen? It will break it into, it will be converted into single stranded DNA. Now the single stranded DNA is annealed for 45 seconds at 54 degrees Celsius. Okay, and the reverse primers are used to couple with the single stranded DNA. Now extension, then DNA polymerases are used for this reaction is conducted for 2 minutes for 72 degrees Celsius, and the DNA polymerase extend the single DNA strands which are being amplified, and it will create number of copies of DNA for your further use. Okay. Next is the genetic fingerprinting. In the you must be knowing that genetic fingerprinting, that DNA sequencing is there. In the DNA sequencing, what it is done, the DNA is first isolated from the desired sample, such as the DNA can be isolated from the bacterial cells, fungal cells, as well as plant cells, as well as animal cells, by using various types of methods. Most of the times the Sanger's method is used, the phenol chloroform method is used for isolation of DNA. Okay. Then the DNA which has been isolated is subjected into a DNA sequencer, and after DNA sequencing you can use a suitable U bacteria specific primers, and those U bacteria specific primers, they specifically bind to the 16S rRNA gene, that is called as 16S rDNA gene of a bacterial cell, and it will start the process of DNA sequencing. After sequencing, you will get a suitable sequence of not less than 900 base pairs. It may be maximum up to 1800 base pairs. That is a 16S ideal sequence for 16S rRNA genes, and that sequence which you have derived in the form of A, T, G and C's, that sequence you can further put it, that sequence, in the digital format. You can blast it by using suitable bioinformatics tools, okay, in NCBI website, and by using Mega 7, Mega 8 as well as Mega 9 softwares, okay, and you can determine the homology of the microorganisms of that microorganism of your interest with the existing database which is present in it, in the library. Then next is the denaturing gradient gel electrophoresis, DGGE. Now here what it is done, this is an electrophoretic method where the electric current is used for moving the DNA or any amino acids or proteins. Now the cells are taken, the DNA is extracted, PCR is performed, then PCR products are derived. Then you have to check the yield of PCR products using agar gel electrophoresis. You have to run that DNA by using agar gel electrophoresis with the known ladders of DNA for determining the molecular weight. Then after that, these products which are being derived from agar gel electrophoresis DNA, it is run subjected to gradient gel electrophoresis, which is also called as DGGE or TGGE. Okay, and the fragment, you have to cut the fragments out of the gel. We have to elute the DNA, means recover the DNA, and amplify it by using PCR without GC clamp. Then we have to purify this DNA after DGG electrophoresis, which have been derived from DGG electrophoresis. Then we have to sequence the fragments, and after sequencing you will get the suitable sequences of DNA. This is the next method, that is random amplified polymorphic DNA, RAPD. It is also called as RAPD. Here you can also determine the similar strains as well as the dissimilar strains in the big microbial community, or in the plant community, or in the animal community. You can carry out this RAPD for various types of biological samples. Next is restriction fragment length polymorphisms, RFLP. Restriction fragment length what is conducted here? Blood stain is taken, the DNA is extracted from the blood cells, then restriction enzyme cleavage of DNA is carried out, then fragments of DNA are separated by electrophoresis, then we have to transfer of DNA fragments to the membrane, that is Southern blotting technique is performed. After that, radioactive DNA probe is used, is added in that mixture to which binds to the specific DNA fragments. Then membrane is washed free from the excess probe. Then X-ray film sandwiched to the membrane detects the radioactive pattern of that particular DNA sequences, and this DNA pattern is compared with the patterns from known subjects. Okay, so in this case restriction fragment then polymorphism is carried out. Then is the reporter genes or the LAGZ or X-GAL system. Here also the DNA of your interest, that is the E. coli cell is taken. It is the plasmid which is being derived. It is isolated from E. coli. Then restriction enzyme, by using suitable restriction enzymes like Z, we have to cut that particular plasmid. Then we have to add the LAC-Z gene. Okay. Then we have to ligate it. After ligation, we have to identify the colonies, and in the step 6, and after step 7 you identify the colonies of your cells. What will happen here? The human cells of your interest, human gene, is being incorporated into the plasmid of E. coli. Okay? The human gene of interest, for example, insulin gene, how it was carried out? Insulin, the gene of insulin was coupled with, inserted in the plasmid of E. coli, and it was ligated. It was again inserted into the E. coli cells, and E. coli was allowed to manufacture that particular hormone. Okay, and it overproduced it. We have to only, what thing we have to do? We have to only purify the insulin, and after purification you have to crystallize it, and you can use it, add it in suitable solvents, and you can use it for the diabetic patients. So this is the reporter genes which are being used. Okay, so this was all about the quantification, quantitative ecology, how quantitative ecology is done. So I hope you liked my lecture. So if you liked my lecture, you can subscribe to my channel. Okay, Dr. Avinash A. Raut. Thank you very much.